Light begins as an absence. Before a sun rose, before a photon leapt, space trembled with what was not yet bright. In that stillness, the first paradox was written: darkness dense with potential. We wake each morning into this inheritance. A room half lit by dawn feels like the universe rehearsing its first awakening. Every glow that meets our skin is ancient, born from an explosion we call the beginning, still arriving. But what if the light we see is not only what it shows? What if it also remembers what it once was not? The human eye opens and the brain receives a rain of photons. They enter the retina, excite molecules, and translate into perception. Yet in every spark there is a residue of the dark vacuum from which the photon came. Each beam carries a silence older than the atoms it touches. In physics, light does not need a medium. It crosses the void on the shoulders of nothing. But the void is not empty. It hums with zero-point energy, the restless whisper of quantum fields. Even the vacuum glows faintly with uncertainty, a shimmer, measurable and paradoxical. Darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the field in which light is born. Imagine a candle lit in a cavern. The flame reveals the stone walls, but it also makes the darkness visible. Without the shadow, brightness would have no outline. The more light expands, the more space it gives to the dark beyond. This is the first rhythm of the cosmos, illumination and concealment dancing. 14 billion years ago, the Big Bang sent radiation outward, but even that explosion occurred inside a deeper stillness, a void that did not vanish, only stretched. The background microwave glow we detect today is not merely light, it is memory. A whisper from when time first learned to move. Everyday life echoes this creation. When we turn off a lamp, the eyes still see the ghost of light. A pale afterimage hovers, not gone, not real, a reminder. The retina stores a brief history of brightness, as if unwilling to accept absence. Science calls it photochemical persistence. Philosophy might call it longing. We are built to keep the light alive, even when it leaves. Perhaps the universe is built the same way, its background radiation, the afterimage of its own birth. To a photon, time does not exist. From emission to absorption, its journey is instantaneous. Yet to us, it travels billions of years, crossing the interstellar dark. So whose memory does light carry? Ours, or its own timeless one? The cosmic microwave background, that faint radio hiss between stars, is the most ancient message still audible. It is light remembering its darkness, a fossil of the moment when the universe cooled enough for photons to escape matter's grip. Before that, everything was opaque. No transparency, no vision, only a hot plasma of blindness. Then, suddenly, clarity. The universe became see-through, and light could wander freely. Every photograph ever taken, every sunbeam on a window, is a translation of that moment of release. We do not see light, we see the record of its escape from darkness. Light reveals, but it also hides, because to see the light itself you must not look at it directly. Brightness burns its own image away. If the cosmos were a symphony, darkness would be the silence between notes. Without that pause, there is only noise. The Big Bang was not a shout, it was a breath drawn in reverse, a vacuum exhaling time. We live inside that exhale, and the photons still carry the tone of the void that birthed them. When you look at a night sky, you are not seeing light crossing space. You are seeing time made visible, distance turned into memory. Light does not flee darkness, it fulfills it. Darkness is not before light. It is the reason light can begin. Light is not a simple traveller. It is a survivor of a time when space itself was not transparent. In the beginning, the universe was a sea of plasma, a storm so dense that light could not move without colliding with matter. Each photon was trapped, bouncing between particles like an echo with no escape. For almost 400,000 years it wandered inside the fog of creation. Only when the universe cooled, when atoms first formed from free electrons and protons, did the walls of that fog begin to open. Then light was released. The photons we now call the cosmic microwave background began their endless flight. They have been travelling ever since, their wavelength stretched by the swelling of the cosmos, their voices softened into microwaves, but their memory intact. That faint background is not distant light. It is near to us, surrounding us, a residue that fills every inch of space. When a radio telescope listens to the sky, it hears this ancient echo, a record of the moment the universe first saw itself. Every photon in that field carries a story of entropy. Entropy is not disorder. It is memory expanding. It is the way information spreads, how energy forgets its source yet never fully erases it. Imagine pouring milk into coffee. At first, the lines of white twist through the black, patterns forming and dissolving in seconds. Eventually, the drink becomes uniform, but the molecules still remember their earlier shapes. The memory is hidden, not lost. In the same way, the early light of the universe still carries the fingerprints of the first fluctuations of matter. Those minute variations in temperature and density are the seeds of every galaxy, every cluster, every star. If we read the background carefully enough, we can trace the tremor of the first moments, the quantum irregularities amplified by time itself. Cosmologists call it anisotropy, the tiny unevenness that gave birth to structure. In those ripples of radiation, we find the beginning of everything solid, and in that structure, the shadow of the darkness that came before. Light does not simply travel through darkness, it sculpts it. It gives the void contour, and in return, the void teaches light how to move. The universe expands, and with it, every photon stretches, its energy thinning, its colour reddening, its memory growing longer and fainter. Yet even now, it tells us what the cosmos was like before any star was born. When we detect the microwave background, we are not seeing light as illumination. We are seeing it as information, as if the void itself had recorded its own birth. Each photon becomes a note in a cosmic symphony. Together, they compose the oldest music still playing. But the rhythm we hear is slow, drawn out by expansion, a song stretched over billions of years. The silence between these notes is just as important. It holds what light cannot carry, the parts of creation too faint to be seen, too quiet to be translated into brightness. Even silence has texture. In that texture, darkness leaves its trace. To understand light, we must understand that it does not move through time as we do. For a photon, there is no before or after. It is born and arrives in the same instant. What we call its journey is our way of describing our own delay in perception. So when we study ancient light, we are not looking into the past. We are touching a surface that never stopped existing. Light remembers because, for it, memory and presence are the same. This is the quiet secret of the cosmos. The farther we look, the younger the light we find, yet it meets us in the present, as if time folded around it. The universe is not simply expanding outward, it is also expanding inward, into consciousness, into the act of observation itself. The photon does not age as it travels, but we do. And in our aging, we mistake its constancy for distance. We think the stars are far away, but in truth, we are the ones moving through their memory. Light is a historian with no handwriting, a messenger that never forgets. Each time it strikes a detector, each time it paints the sky, it whispers the same thing. I remember the darkness that made me. And in that whisper, the universe continues to speak. When light left the first fog of matter, it did not travel into emptiness. It entered a field that already pulsed with invisible possibility. The vacuum of space is not a nothing. It is a restless sea of potential, where particles flicker in and out of being, borrowing energy from uncertainty itself. Physicists call it the quantum foam, a fabric woven of probabilities. Everywhere light moves, this foam trembles. Tiny virtual particles appear and vanish, creating ripples that shift the photon's path by the smallest measurable degree. That is how darkness holds memory. Not as shadow, but as fluctuation. The void remembers through its instability. Light moves because emptiness refuses to stay still. In this sense, light is not separate from darkness. It is its vibration, the visible crest of an invisible ocean. When we speak of photons travelling across billions of years, we imagine them flying through nothingness. But what really happens is more subtle. They surf a medium that constantly births and erases itself, a fabric of energy that hums beneath all existence. Each photon interacts minutely with this restless foundation. Each carries the record of that passage, a signature written in frequency and phase. That is why light remembers, because the vacuum itself keeps the imprint of every interaction. Imagine a violin string vibrating in a silent hall. Even after the bow lifts, the air still carries the ghost of the tone. That echo fades, but if you listen deeply enough, it is still there, embedded in the walls, in the molecules of air that once tremble. Space works the same way. Every wave that passes leaves a faint inscription. Every photon etches its presence into the invisible. The universe is not a blank sheet, but a palimpsest, written and rewritten by the light that crosses it. From this constant rewriting emerges something profound, the persistence of information. Stephen Hawking once wondered if information could be lost, if black holes could erase what they swallow. Later physics suggested otherwise. Even when matter falls beyond an event horizon, the information of its existence lingers at the boundary. So perhaps nothing truly vanishes. Perhaps the cosmos keeps every trace, even the ones we can no longer read. If that is true, then light is both messenger and archivist. It gathers the whispers of entropy, translating decay into continuity. Every fading star leaves a note, every burnt atom a chord, and together they compose the record of being. To call darkness empty is to mistake silence for absence. The dark is pregnant with vibration, so dense with latent song that only light can reveal its score. But revelation comes at a cost. Each time light reveals, it consumes a little of its own energy, sliding toward longer wavelengths, cooler colours, slower time. The universe ages by watching itself. Observation drains it gently, like breath leaving a lung. In this way, seeing is also entropy. Every act of measurement adds one more layer of memory to the dark. We often say light defines what is visible, but invisibility defines what remains. What we cannot see is the archive of everything seen. It is strange to think that the oldest light still touches us now, each photon like a survivor of creation, brushing against the detectors of our machines or the soft tissue of our eyes. It tells us that time is not a river but a sea, and light is the current we ride. The deeper we listen, the clearer we hear the paradox, that darkness does not oppose light, it sustains it. The vacuum is not an absence of being, it is being in its quietest form. Even the shadows cast by our bodies are echoes of that same tension, the push between revelation and concealment. Every light source creates two stories, one of presence and one of retreat. We are made of both. And so, as photons continue their endless journey, their energy thinning with the cosmos, they do not fade into nothing, they fade into meaning. There is a strange truth hidden inside the behaviour of light. It remembers everything, yet it cannot remember itself. A photon travels through space without experiencing time. From its perspective, emission and arrival are the same instant. To us, that journey could last billions of years. We see it stretch, dim, redshift with distance. But for the photon there is no distance. It is already where it is going. So how can something that has no time, no duration, carry the memory of the beginning? The answer lies in us. We, the observers, provide the delay. We give the light the space to exist between what was and what is. Without consciousness to receive it, light would remain a silent flash, timeless, eventless. It is our time that makes its journey real. This is the first paradox. Light has no past, yet it brings the past to us. Darkness has no form, yet it gives form to what we see. When cosmologists look deep into the microwave background, they are not seeing a distant scene. They are witnessing the universe as it happens, not in history, but in recurrence. Every photon that reaches our detectors is a repetition of the original illumination. Creation is not an event behind us, it is a pulse still ongoing. Perhaps this is why space feels alive, why even silence hums. We are surrounded by light that is both ancient and newborn, travelling nowhere, yet arriving everywhere. And still, there is something that resists this brightness. Dark matter, invisible, makes up most of what exists. It neither emits nor absorbs light. It moves galaxies, bends the paths of stars, but refuses to be seen. We call it dark because we cannot touch it with photons, but maybe it is dark because it remembers differently. Where light remembers through exposure, dark matter remembers through gravity, through the way it holds things together. The two work in opposition and partnership. Light expands, darkness binds. One writes the story outward, the other keeps it coherent. Without that tension, the universe would dissolve. Think of it this way. Light tells the tale of separation. Darkness tells the tale of return. Every galaxy, every atom balances on that edge. When we look into deep space, we are not peering into a void. We are entering a vast archive of motion, where time folds into geometry. The shape of space is curved by mass, and the path of light bends accordingly. This curvature is memory made visible. Gravity does not pull, it instructs. It tells light how to move through the story of space-time. And light obeys, not because it must, but because it cannot do otherwise. The universe is not a container of light. It is the pattern that light makes by remembering. Every distortion, every lensing effect, is a signature of interaction between brightness and darkness. In the arcs of distant galaxies, we see the handwriting of gravity, the silent author behind the visible. Light seems free, but its freedom is written by invisible rules. It travels straight only in emptiness, and even emptiness is curved. That is the second paradox. Light is constant, yet it bends. It is pure motion, yet it shapes stillness. It illuminates all things, yet can never see itself. We think of darkness as absence, but what if it is the body of the unobservable? Not a lack of light, but the structure that allows light to exist. In the human mind, the same rule repeats. Consciousness is illumination, awareness that burns through the void. But beneath it lies the unconscious, the unseen matter that shapes thought, the gravity of being. Our ideas move like photons, fast, radiant, fleeting. Our silence holds them in orbit. The cosmic dance of light and dark is the same movement inside us. Every perception, every insight, is an emission from the depths. Every forgetting, every pause, is gravity restoring balance. Even death can be read this way, not as extinction but as redshift. The soul perhaps is light stretching beyond the body, its wavelength drifting toward infinity, its brightness dissolving into the dark that made it. And what remains, after the last photon fades, is not emptiness, but the memory of radiance, engraved in the quiet curve of space-time. We call that the end, but it is only the resting face of creation. Light slows, at least for us, not in its own speed, but in the way we begin to listen. After the surge of revelation, after the rush of stars and equations, there comes the soft return, a quieter realization that the universe is not rushing away from us. It is breathing. Every photon, every vibration of the void is part of this breath, the inhale of formation, the exhale of dissolution. We happen to live in between, where the rhythm feels like time. Our instruments translate these breaths into numbers, into colour maps and radiation charts. But beneath the data, something older moves, a pulse that has been steady since the beginning. We have learned to measure the age of light, to date the background radiation, to predict the fading of the stars. Yet what we measure is only the cooling of a body, not the heart that still beats within it. The cosmos, in its vastness, is not indifferent. It is precise, balanced, always returning what it receives. Light leaves a star, and across eons its energy warms a distant world. There it might trigger photosynthesis, feed a living cell, or become part of the spark behind a thought. That energy does not disappear. It changes form, becomes awareness, then memory. In that sense, we are the continuation of the universe's light. Our minds are instruments of re-emission. Every idea, every act of attention is a photon released again. Darkness, too, participates in this cycle. The night sky is not an absence of stars, but the sum of all distances. It gathers light the way the mind gathers silence. Without that collection, the song of the cosmos would have no depth. Entropy does not mean decline. It is the spreading of information, the widening of connection. What fades in order becomes visible in meaning. Even the faintest radiation left from the Big Bang is still speaking. It tells us that nothing ever truly vanishes. Every action ripples outward, cooling, stretching, but still traceable to its source. When we look at the night sky, we are not seeing scattered lights. We are watching an organism in motion, its blood made of photons, its breath, the expansion of space. And inside that vastness, darkness is not the enemy of light. It is its medium, its teacher, the canvas on which illumination learns its shape. Perhaps this is what the universe has been saying all along. To shine is not to conquer the dark, but to remember it kindly. To move through it, carrying the memory of what cannot be seen. Our own hearts follow the same rule. They beat because of contrast, the expansion and contraction, the pulse between presence and absence. We live because our blood remembers how to return. So does light. Somewhere, in the faint hiss of background radiation, in the static between radio stations, you can still hear the afterglow of the beginning. It is not distant, it is inside the hum of existence itself, a reminder that the dark was never gone. Light may be our language, but darkness is the paper it's written on. Without one, the other could not be read. And so the paradox closes softly. The void, it seems, is not waiting to be filled. It is what makes fullness possible. There comes a point in every illumination when brightness begins to blind. The more we see, the less we understand what seeing means. Light, once our guide, turns into a mirror so bright it hides its reflection. It shows everything except itself. We stand in the glow, but cannot tell where the glow begins. The universe too has reached such a moment. It expands faster than we can measure, its edges accelerating into invisibility. The farther light travels, the longer its wavelength becomes, until it drifts beyond our instruments, into frequencies too slow to sense. Eventually, the cosmos will fade from view, not because it ends, but because light will have stretched itself past the limits of perception. The universe will not die in darkness, it will drown in its own light. And here lies a new paradox. Darkness was the origin of creation. Now, perfect brightness will be its silence. We call this the heat death, a future where everything is so evenly spread that no gradient remains, no contrast, no difference, only equilibrium. But equilibrium is not peace. It is stasis, the stillness that follows total knowing. Imagine a world where every question is answered, where light has reached every corner and nothing remains hidden. In such a world, nothing can move. Without mystery, there is no energy. Without darkness, there is no life. Entropy, the slow evening of all contrasts, is not destruction, but completion. The universe will remember everything, and therefore, it will stop changing. We are not there yet, but we can feel its echo. The background radiation still hums, a residue of that first light, and in its hum, you can hear the foreshadowing of stillness. It is like a song holding its final note too long, the resonance becoming silence. Brightness, drawn out into infinity, becomes indistinguishable from the dark. Perhaps that is the secret symmetry, that the end of light is not nightfall, but transparency. When everything shines, nothing is visible. Our eyes, evolved for contrast, depend on shadow to define meaning. If light filled every space equally, the world would vanish into whiteness. Absolute illumination would be absolute blindness. So light, in its perfection, must limit itself. It must keep some darkness near to remain visible. Creation depends on restraint. Vision depends on what is withheld. Even within us, the same pattern unfolds. Too much clarity burns the imagination. We need the unknown to think, the unsolved to feel alive. The cosmos is a teacher in this. It expands, but not infinitely fast. It shines, but not endlessly bright. Every boundary, every horizon is mercy. And perhaps this balance is not accidental. Perhaps light remembers its origin because forgetting would end the story. So the universe keeps the rhythm, a pulse of revelation and concealment, a breathing between being and not being. It learned it from the first darkness and has never stopped repeating it. We once believed that more light would mean more truth. We built telescopes, amplifiers, detectors that could read the faintest photons. We searched for the edge of visibility, the farthest signal still crossing the sky. And yet, the more precisely we looked, the less we understood what we were seeing. Beyond a certain distance, the light we gather no longer belongs to stars. It belongs to the stretching of space itself. The signal becomes its own echo. We call this redshift, but what it truly means is that light is aging as it travels, not in time, but in translation. It forgets what it once revealed, even as it carries that memory forward. The universe, viewed through light, is a story written by forgetting. Brightness fades not because it loses strength, but because it gives itself away to distance. So we stand here, surrounded by relics of illumination, and realize we cannot separate what we observe from the act of observing. To see deeply is to disturb the fabric of what is seen. Every measurement changes the world slightly, as if light only reveals what agrees to be witnessed. And that too is a kind of mercy. The cosmos does not expose everything at once. It teaches through layers, allowing our perception to evolve with our capacity. In laboratories, scientists cool matter to near absolute zero and see strange behaviours emerge. Particles overlap, boundaries blur, and waves of probability replace solid form. Light interacts with this frozen stillness, not as a visitor, but as a memory coming home. In the absence of thermal motion, the universe returns to its original quiet. It is as if creation remembers how it began, whispering its first equilibrium back to itself. But we are not content with silence. We ignite, we measure, we send beams of light into vacuum chambers trying to see what cannot be seen, and in that relentless search, we begin to discover a strange reflection. The boundary between observer and observed grows thinner. The universe does not stand apart from us. It folds around our gaze. When we watch, it changes. When we stop, it rests. We like to think that light tells us what is real. but perhaps reality is what light agrees to share. The mind mirrors this perfectly. Every thought illuminates something within, but also casts a shadow behind it. Consciousness expands not by erasing the dark, but by dancing with it. The psyche is a small cosmos. Dreams are its dark matter, invisible, yet shaping every orbit of meaning. Memory is its radiation background, soft, persistent, a hum that proves we once burned brighter. Perhaps the human eye is not a passive receiver of light, but a continuation of it. Photons become impulses. Impulses become imagination. Light becomes thought. The universe looks back at itself through our seeing. And that seeing, though radiant, contains blindness at its core. We cannot look at our own awareness directly. To do so would dissolve it, just as staring into the sun erases sight. This is the paradox deepening, illumination revealing the limits of illumination. Light burns the path of its own undoing. Every act of revelation is also an act of concealment. Every truth uncovered creates a new shadow behind it. The cosmos behaves like a poem written in reflection, each line undoing the certainty of the one before. It is a system of balance, not dominance. For light to remain meaningful, it must coexist with mystery. The dark is not ignorance, it is potential, the silence that makes comprehension possible. And maybe, what we call understanding is not the arrival of truth, but the recognition of how much remains unseen. The universe, illuminated to its edges, does not ask to be solved. It asks to be witnessed, again and again, in wonder. At the centre of every illumination, there is a shadow too bright to name. Light does not end darkness. It creates a new kind of night, the one that lives inside clarity. We believe we see the world through light, but perhaps it is light that sees through us. It passes through our eyes, through our nerves, through thought itself, leaving impressions of what it touched, then moving on. In that passing, we mistake reflection for reality. We think we know the source because we can trace the glow, but light never reveals the origin, it only describes the journey. The photon carries no colour. Colour exists only when the wave is caught. Red, blue, gold, they live in our minds. Light itself is invisible until resistance gives it form. We do not see light, we see what stops it. And there it is, the secret reversal at the heart of vision. Darkness is not what hides, but what allows revelation to appear. Without a limit, brightness is meaningless. Without the dark, the concept of seeing collapses. The world does not glow on its own. It glows because something in us wants it to. So the cosmos and the observer are bound, each depending on the other's blindness. The universe can shine for billions of years, but until an eye opens, its brilliance is incomplete. Observation completes creation, yet the act of seeing also breaks what it sees. A star collapses under its own gravity and becomes a singularity, a point so dense that light cannot escape. But the information of that light is not gone. It clings to the horizon, etched into the surface of space-time. Even when swallowed, light refuses oblivion. It converts memory into curvature, brightness into geometry. Black holes, those deepest shadows, are not holes at all. They are mirrors turned inward, reflecting the history of what they consume. Inside them, darkness remembers light perfectly. And so we are taught to fear the void, but the void is what preserves the record. In its silence, it keeps the score of everything that has ever burned. Every beam that enters it becomes part of a larger harmony, a light so diffused, so total, that it resembles night. Perhaps the destiny of illumination is not to stay visible, but to merge with its origin, to remember itself by becoming dark again. This is not loss, it is return. When the last star exhausts its fuel, when the galaxies drift apart and the universe cools into transparency, there will still be a whisper. A faint shimmer in the background, a memory that refuses erasure. That final light will not illuminate anything. It will illuminate everything, and therefore nothing in particular. It will become the pure equilibrium of existence. Maybe that is the true identity of darkness, the completion of illumination. For if light is the act of becoming, then darkness is the act of being. And we, caught between them, are the witnesses of their dialogue. Every thought, every dream is that dialogue written small. To live is to oscillate between knowing and unknowing, between brightness and shadow, until both dissolve into one. After the blaze there is a breath. After revelation, a silence that feels almost tender. The eye flooded with brilliance begins to ache for shadow. Only then do we understand that vision is not about light. It is about recovery. We blink, and in that moment of darkness the image settles. What we see becomes real only when it is allowed to rest. The universe does the same. It expands in flashes, then slows, letting its own light cool into memory. Galaxies drift apart, not out of loneliness, but to give their radiance room to fade gently. Fading is not failing. It is how brightness finds peace. Every night the stars rehearse this truth. They appear, they vanish, they remain. Our gaze completes their rhythm. And within us something similar unfolds. Awareness cannot stay illuminated forever. We burn out when we do not let the dark return. In the quiet between thoughts, in the pause between breaths, the mind remembers its origin, not in noise, but in stillness. That stillness is not empty. It is full of waiting energy, as if the void itself is inhaling. It is the same breath that filled the first moment, the same pulse that carries every photon forward. We live inside that inhale. Each of us is a brief concentration of light, folded from darkness, shaped by contrast. Our bodies emit warmth, our eyes radiate awareness, and when we sleep, we dissolve again into the invisible. Darkness is not our opposite. It is our symmetry. Every heartbeat echoes the pulse of expansion. Every thought is a tiny photon escaping gravity. We are scaled versions of the same phenomenon. Perhaps that is what consciousness really is. A slow light learning to remember its origin. Every dream is an act of return. Every silence a rehearsal for infinity. If the universe is destined to cool into stillness, then what survives is not form but awareness, not energy but the memory of energy, not brightness but understanding. And maybe that is enough. We have been taught to fear the end, the dimming of stars, the loss of fire, the fading of creation, but in truth nothing ever vanishes, it only changes its way of shining. Even in absolute darkness there is structure. Even in silence there is rhythm. Every void hums with the echo of what it once contained. We too carry that hum. In our cells, in our memories, the light of ancient stars continues to burn softly. It shaped our atoms, wrote our bones, and now speaks through our voices. When we tell stories, when we love, when we pause to listen, we participate in that same persistence. So perhaps light's greatest act of memory is not in photons or waves, but in the human capacity to feel wonder. We are the continuation of its remembering, the living darkness where light can echo without end. At last, the universe does not need to choose between brightness and shadow. They have become one continuum, a slow exchange, a pulse that never stops. And inside that pulse, something quietly eternal whispers. The darkness that made me was never gone. I am still carrying it, and it carries me. Light enters the body long before we learn to name it. Before language, Before thought, there is the shimmer behind closed eyelids. Infants sense the day through warmth, not sight. The pulse of brightness seeps into skin, teaching the body when to wake, when to dream. Inside the eye, cells transform photons into chemistry, chemistry into electricity, electricity into perception. It happens so effortlessly that we forget it is a translation, a secret alchemy at the heart of being alive. The retina is not merely a camera. It is a living extension of the brain, a sheet of neural light reaching outward to meet the world. Every time a photon touches it, matter remembers energy. In that moment, the cosmos and the human are indistinguishable. The same equations that describe the birth of stars also describe the flicker of awareness in the mind. We are made from the same fire, refined into perception. To see, then, is not to receive the world, it is to participate in its creation. Each act of looking writes the world anew, shaping light into meaning. But meaning carries shadow. Every memory of brightness contains the outline of what was missed. We remember moments not as they were, but as our light allowed them to appear. In this way, the self becomes a small universe, expanding through recollection, collapsing through forgetting. Our consciousness is a living background radiation, a soft hum of remembered suns. When we dream, light takes new forms. It detaches from the outer world and paints its own landscape. Colours without photons, motion without matter. Pure imagination, the inner echo of cosmic creation. In the language of the body, sleep is the nightly cooling of the mind. It mirrors the universe's long descent toward equilibrium. Every morning we wake again, a small reversal of entropy, a localized resurrection of light. Perhaps this is why waking feels miraculous. The body warms, the eyes reopen, and suddenly brightness returns. We are not simply continuing from yesterday, we are reenacting the first dawn. Light remembers darkness through us. Each heartbeat, each breath drawn from shadow into air, is the echo of that first emergence. Science tells us that photons can trigger reactions in molecules of the skin, alter hormones, synchronize the rhythms of our organs. We are not only observers of light, we are regulated by it and trained to its cycles. Day and night write themselves into the chemistry of our blood. Melatonin, serotonin, the molecular reflections of sunrise and dusk. Every cell carries a circadian clock, ticking to the memory of the sun. We are luminous machines, built from the residue of ancient fire. But beneath the mechanism something softer moves, a longing that cannot be measured. When light touches us, it awakens recognition, not of the external world, but of home. The warmth on the skin feels familiar because it is ancestral. It is the same warmth that shaped the first molecules, that taught carbon how to dance into complexity. The body is a memory of the universe, folded small enough to breathe. And when we close our eyes, darkness does not erase the light. It holds it gently, like a keeper of dreams. When light enters the mind, it becomes memory. Not the factual kind that can be written or erased, but a texture, a pattern of warmth that the body remembers without words. The morning light that fell across your childhood room, the golden dust that moved in the air, the way it softened your mother's voice, none of it remains in form, yet all of it lives in you. We call it nostalgia, but perhaps it is physics speaking softly through emotion. Light captured in the body, now glowing behind thought. The brain does not store images like a camera, it reconstructs them. Every time you remember, the pattern is redrawn, slightly changed, slightly dimmer or warmer. Memory, like light, is not static. It flickers, it ages, it redshifts. To recall something is to bring it back into the present, and in doing so, to transform it. We live inside that transformation. Every act of remembering is both creation and loss. Neuroscience shows that vision itself is not a single sense, but a choreography. The eyes send signals, but the brain edits, predicts, fills the gaps. Half of what we see is not outside us, but inside. The mind, painting over uncertainty with what it expects. So the world we perceive is part observation, part imagination. Reality and dream, woven by photons and neurons together. Light, therefore, is not truth. It is suggestion. It gives us just enough to create the illusion of certainty. And yet, what a beautiful illusion it is. Through it we find form, colour, relationship, meaning. When you stand before someone you love, what you see is not them exactly. It is light reflecting from their skin, travelling across air, touching your eye, translated into voltage, shaped by memory. You see not their presence, but the record of their presence. Love, then, is a perception layered with delay. The person you hold in your gaze is already a few nanoseconds in the past. Their light has travelled to reach you, and yours is travelling to reach them. Two beings, each glowing from within, meeting halfway across the moment. Perhaps this is what intimacy really means, the synchronization of delays, two rhythms of light finding harmony in time. We are all time travellers, sending and receiving fragments of brightness. Every conversation, every shared silence, is an exchange of ancient photons, remnants of stars now long gone. And the mind, in its quiet brilliance, turns that physical event into feeling. A photon becomes awareness, awareness becomes empathy, light becomes understanding. But understanding carries shadow. To see deeply is to sense the edges of what cannot be known. We recognize each other through incompleteness. The mystery between us is what keeps connection alive. Darkness once again becomes necessary. Without it, love would be unbearable, too transparent, too endless. The heart needs a place to hide its light. Inside every human, there is a small horizon, a private gravity that holds memory close. We cannot fully reveal ourselves, just as the universe cannot reveal all of its light. And that restraint, that gentle concealment, is grace. Light teaches us this lesson endlessly. Every sunset reminds us that beauty depends on fading. Every shadow on the wall shows that form exists because of absence. We do not live in opposition to the cosmos. We live as its continuation, carrying the same rhythm of brightness and retreat. The photon that left a star 1,000,000 years ago enters your eye tonight, and for an instant, its journey ends in your thought. You are the completion of that light. You are its memory made human. We are made of light, but we cannot see our own glow. Every cell emits faint photons, a biological shimmer too weak for our eyes. The body glows quietly, a field of small stars hidden beneath the skin. If you could step outside yourself and look, you would see a constellation of warmth and thought, a living nebula of chemical fire. But the miracle of being alive is that we cannot witness it directly. The observer and the observed are the same. This is the human paradox. We illuminate the world, but we remain half in shadow. Consciousness reveals everything except itself. We spend our lives chasing that missing reflection. In others, in art, in faith. We build cities of glass to multiply the glow, and still we do not see what burns within. In moments of solitude, when light softens and the noise fades, the question returns. Who is doing the seeing? What is the source of the brightness behind perception? Science tells us that the mind is an electrochemical system. Philosophy tells us it is awareness itself. But neither fully explains the feeling of being lit from within. It is as though we are torches carried by something vast, briefly aflame in the dark, trying to remember the fire that lent us its spark. Every thought is a photon of meaning, born, radiating, vanishing. Each emotion a wavelength. Joy burns short and blue, sorrow long and red. Together they form the full spectrum of being. But the brighter we burn, the the faster we fade. Awareness consumes itself in the act of shining. To know deeply is to be changed by the knowing. The universe mirrors this perfectly. Stars live by fusion and die by the same. Brightness and decay are not opposites. They are phases of the same gesture. Human life follows the same physics. Our passions ignite, our ideas expand, then cool into wisdom. Every insight costs energy. Every illumination casts a shadow of fatigue. And yet, we keep reaching for the light, even when it blinds us, even when it hurts, because something inside us recognizes itself in that radiance. We love the light not for what it shows, but for what it promises, that we are more than the matter we inhabit. Still, every revelation deepens the mystery. The more clearly we see the world, the more invisible the seer becomes. Clarity erases the self that perceives it. This is the human collapse, the realization that the one who seeks truth disappears in the act of finding it. But maybe this too is grace. Perhaps the purpose of light is not to preserve the self, but to dissolve it into connection. When you hold someone's hand, the warmth that passes between you is not only heat. It is a form of recognition, a reminder that every boundary is temporary. We are each a photon, and every encounter a collision, a moment of exchange, a scattering of brilliance. And when we part, our trajectories diverge, but the imprint remains. Energy never vanishes, neither does love. So the light we share with others is never lost. It becomes part of the background glow, the invisible field of human presence that surrounds every act of kindness. If you listen closely to silence, you can almost hear it, a faint hum, like distant stars still speaking through our pulse. Perhaps that hum is consciousness remembering its source. Perhaps every thought, every gesture of compassion is the cosmos trying to see itself again. We are that attempt, the reflection of light within darkness, the echo that refuses to fade. After the blaze of self-awareness, there is a quiet glow, not the light of revelation, but the kind that lingers after understanding. The room of the mind grows softer, the walls between thought and world thin. You begin to sense that everything luminous has always been within reach, that every darkness you feared was only the shadow of your own light. The body settles into this knowing. Breath deepens. Heartbeat slows. In that rhythm, you can almost hear the universe breathing with you. The distinction between inner and outer fades. The photons entering your eyes are the same ones your cells once released. You are both receiver and source. A circuit closing gently, completing its loop. In this space, understanding becomes tenderness. Science and feeling are no longer separate languages. They translate each other perfectly. The laws of thermodynamics become the grammar of compassion, energy exchanged, never destroyed, only changed in form. What we give away in warmth returns to us in new shapes, a gesture, a voice, a moment of recognition in another's eyes. Every kindness is a photon that refuses to die. The same is true of memory. What we lose does not disappear, it diffuses, settling into the background of who we are, as gentle light within thought. Perhaps that is why grief feels radiant. It burns quietly, like the last glow of a setting star. It hurts because it reminds us that love was real enough to alter the sky. Darkness in that sense is love's shelter. It holds what light cannot carry, the weight of meaning, the dignity of rest. When you stand alone at night and look up at the sky, you are not small. You are surrounded by your own continuation. The stars are not distant. They are familiar. They are family. Every particle in your body was once inside a star, and before that, in the dense blackness of the early universe. The atoms of your breath have known fire and silence alike. They have waited billions of years to speak through you. And now, they do. This is the quiet miracle, that consciousness arose from dust, that awareness blooms from what once was void. In the end, the universe did not need to create witnesses. It became them. You are that transformation. The cosmos looking inward, light remembering darkness, darkness recognizing light. If there is purpose in existence, perhaps it is this: to see, to feel, to understand, then to let go. Because letting go is not the opposite of holding, it is the completion of it. Just as every photon must leave its star to fulfill its destiny, we too must release what we have illuminated. And so the heart learns the universe's rhythm, to burn, to fade, to rest, to rise again. In the silence after the story, you can feel that rhythm still moving, not as a thought, but as warmth, the quiet pulse of something infinite, beating gently beneath everything. And in that warmth, light and darkness finally stop arguing. They turn toward each other, as lovers do after a long separation, and recognize themselves. Dawn is not a beginning, it is a remembering. Every sunrise repeats the first ignition, that ancient spark when the universe awoke. We stand under the same equation of radiance and stillness, the same dialogue between what shines and what waits. Light touches the horizon, and darkness does not vanish. It softens, sliding gently into colour. The two merge, as they have always done. When you open your eyes after sleep, you are performing the oldest act of creation. You are the cosmos remembering how to see. The photons that reach your skin have travelled for ages, some born from stars now gone, some scattered from the edge of time itself. They have crossed emptiness to find a face willing to recognise them. And in that recognition, light completes its journey. It was never seeking a destination. It was seeking witness. That is why it remembers darkness. Because darkness was the first witness. The void received the explosion and gave it form by contrast. Without that embrace, light would have spread forever, undefined, unseen, without meaning. Even now, as we bask in its warmth, darkness stands quietly behind it, holding the shape of everything we know. The balance is delicate. If the light of the sun were slightly stronger, life would burn. If weaker, life would freeze. Existence depends on the narrow space where light and shadow negotiate. We live in that interval, that fine grey between revelation and concealment. Our hearts beat there, our thoughts form there. It is the borderland where creation continues to unfold. Science calls it equilibrium, the balance of energy and entropy. Philosophy calls it awareness, the balance of knowing and mystery. In truth, they are the same. To live is to stay between extremes, to move within the middle glow where order meets chaos, where certainty leans into wonder. Perhaps this is what the universe has been practicing all along. It did not explode into being to escape the dark. It expanded to learn how to hold it gently. Darkness was never the enemy of light. It was its partner, its first and final teacher. You can feel that teaching in every human gesture, the way we pause before speaking, the way silence follows music, the way love needs distance to stay alive. Each is a rhythm learned from the cosmos, illumination and rest, sound and hush, presence and disappearance. The sky itself mirrors this wisdom. Day is not triumph, night is not defeat. They follow each other endlessly, a dance without rivalry, a lesson written above us since before we could read. And so, as light returns each morning, it does not conquer darkness, it returns to it, as a wave returns to the sea. Every sunrise is a reunion, and every eye that opens to see it is another memory awakened in the fabric of time. The closer we listen to the universe, the more we realize that its story is not distant. It is not about galaxies spinning far away, but about the same motion unfolding within us. The laws that shape the stars shape the mind. The gravity that bends light is the same gravity that draws one human heart toward another. Entropy and emotion, energy and thought, they are all variations of the same pulse. When we fall in love, we do not break the rules of physics, we confirm them. The traction is gravity with memory, two fields bending space around each other, finding equilibrium in the curve between. Every word we speak is an exchange of energy. Every silence is a conservation of it. In this way, conversation is a mirror of cosmology. We orbit each other, trading photons of meaning. And like the universe, we expand through contact, we cool through time, and we radiate the warmth of what we have learned. This is not poetry, it is physics wearing a human face. Light and darkness do not exist separately in us. They are the alternating currents of our inner circuitry. Every insight is illumination. Every uncertainty is the dark matter that gives it weight. Without the unknown, knowledge would have no texture. Without forgetting, memory would have no purpose. Without silence, music would collapse. The cosmos has no hierarchy, only balance, and so do we. Science once believed the universe was running down, losing its structure to entropy. But newer theories suggest something subtler, that information never truly dies, that even in heat death, the pattern persists as potential. In the same way, the stories we tell, the kindnesses we release, the small lights of our lives do not vanish. They dissolve into the fabric of collective memory, encoded in every vibration of the world around us. Maybe that is what eternity means. Not endless time, but total remembrance. When the last photon fades into stillness, its signature will remain in the shape of space. When the last voice goes quiet, its echo will remain in the breath of another. Existence is never erased. It only changes form. Look at the ocean. Each wave rises and falls, but the sea continues. Every crest is different, yet all are made of the same water. The wave's disappearance is not death, it is return. Human life follows that same tide. We rise in brightness, we subside into dark, but the essence, the motion itself, remains. The photons that once touched your skin will continue on their way, perhaps to spark the birth of something new in a place you will never see. They will carry the imprint of your existence, however faint, into the future of creation. We are not the end of light's journey. We are the moment it changes direction. That is the hidden symmetry of being alive. We are both the witness and the continuation. We are the space where the universe turns inward, learning to see itself again. And in that seeing, there is peace. Because to understand the cosmos is not to conquer it, but to belong to it. To feel the warmth of sunlight on the hand and know that it is the same warmth that once burned in the birth of time. In that instant, distance collapses. You, the photon, the void, the memory, they are one motion, a single act of remembering, repeating itself in endless forms. Light was never trying to escape the dark. It was trying to learn how to stay with it. And in learning that, it became us. The question remains, why does light remember the darkness that made it? Perhaps because memory itself is the shape of love. To remember is to continue caring for what is gone. Light carries the record of its origin the way a song carries silence inside its rhythm. Every note depends on what it does not play. Every radiance depends on the space that receives it. The universe, in this sense, is not a conflict between opposites. It is a conversation that never ends. Darkness speaks first, light answers, and meaning is the resonance between their voices. We are born in that dialogue. We think we emerge from chaos into clarity, but really, Clarity is the harmony of chaos. Order is not the absence of disorder. It is the music that disorder becomes when listened to long enough. The Big Bang was not an explosion. It was a moment of recognition. The void realizing it could become visible. That recognition still continues. Every beam of light is the universe remembering its capacity to shine. Every shadow is the universe remembering its capacity to rest. The two are inseparable. Each contains the seed of the other. Too much illumination and you go blind. Too much darkness and you lose direction. But between them lies perception, the delicate balance where life can happen. In that balance, time itself finds meaning. For light, there is no duration. For darkness, there is no change. But together, they create the illusion of movement. And that illusion becomes story. And story becomes consciousness. So perhaps consciousness is not an accident of biology, but the way the universe feels its own oscillation. The mind is not separate from the cosmos. It is the echo of the first vibration, still trembling, still remembering. We say that light travels, but what if it is the darkness that moves, opening paths for illumination to flow through? What if darkness expands and light merely fills the room it prepares? That inversion changes everything. Darkness, then, is not the absence of life. It is the invitation to live. It is the blank page, the silence before the note, the still air before the storm. Light is not its conqueror, but its completion. When you think of the moments that changed you, they were rarely blinding. They were often quiet. A pause, a glance, a darkness broken by a single, steady glow. That is how transformation happens, not in brightness, but in contrast. Every spiritual tradition, every scientific revelation eventually finds the same truth, that clarity is born from limitation, that seeing depends on not seeing, that knowledge requires mystery. This is the final paradox. The more the universe knows itself, the more it must forget. The more we illuminate, the more darkness we reveal. It is a cycle, not a hierarchy, a pulse, not a line. And at the heart of that pulse is something nameless, a silence deeper than matter, a stillness that holds both light and shadow like breath between heartbeats. Maybe that is what eternity truly feels like. Not endless brightness, not endless night, but the continuous exchange between them. A shimmering equilibrium, always in motion, always at rest. So when you close your eyes and see the faint flicker behind the lids, remember, that is not the absence of vision. It is the meeting point of opposites. It is where the universe gathers to begin again. The universe is quiet now, not silent, but composed. Every pulse of radiation, every shimmer of gravity moves in balance. Nothing is missing, nothing is wasted. Light continues to travel, though there is nowhere left to go. Darkness continues to hold, though there is nothing left to hide. And between them, existence hums, a steady tone that is not sound, a rhythm that does not count time. If you listen long enough, you can feel it beneath your ribs. It is the same vibration that began at the first breath of space. It has been here always, moving through everything, waiting to be heard. We are not apart from it. We are what it sounds like when the cosmos speaks through living matter. In every thought, in every sigh, in every act of noticing, the universe remembers itself. It does not need words. It does not need purpose. It only needs presence. That is what light has been doing all along, learning to be present. Through stars and minds, through storms and stillness, it has practiced the art of remaining. It has learned how to stay without burning, how to shine without demanding, how to remember without clinging. We are its final rehearsal, its living echo. Each of us a brief alignment of energy, carrying the same lesson in smaller form. To live is to hold brightness gently, to let it pass through you, to release it without regret. Our bodies know this wisdom. Every heartbeat is a giving and a return. Every breath is a departure and a homecoming. Every tear reflects both joy and gravity. Light taught us how to love. Darkness taught us how to rest. Together, they taught us how to be. Perhaps that is all the universe ever wanted. To learn how to exist without fear. And so it created contrast and called it beauty. It created time and called it patience. It created us and called it memory. Now, as we reach the quiet end of the journey, there is no need for conclusion, only continuation. The question dissolves into the answer, and the answer becomes the next question. Why does light remember the darkness that made it? Because forgetting would end the song. Because memory is the way creation breathes. Because only by carrying the dark can light remain true to itself. And in that carrying, everything finds meaning. Stars, minds, atoms, silence. You can feel it even now, in the air between words, in the warmth that lingers after a voice stops speaking. The dialogue never ends. The universe is still whispering, light is still remembering, and darkness is still listening. Everything that was ever illuminated is still here, folded gently into the calm. So rest. Let the sound fade. Let the brightness dim. Let the question remain. For in that remaining, in that soft breath of unknowing, you are the memory that light became.